Hi everybody. Today I'd like to explore a truly important and very profound question with you. And that is the question, do we actually need animals, in particular farm animals, for ideal health and fertility, both of our human bodies and of our soils? Because in the end, all dietary controversy comes down to this question and our different views on that. Recently I shared a video where I interviewed a goat farmer, a cheese producer, as an example for a more responsible way of doing animal farming. And even within that more ethical model, animals still have to be sacrificed, even if we're talking about milk production, because wherever baby animals are born, not only females are born, but also males. That is true for goats, that is true for chickens, that is true for cows. And so we are always faced within this model with the dilemma what to do with the males. I am personally, again, in this situation because a hen of mine recently bred, and we have now 7 baby chicks, and at least 3 of them are going to be roosters. And you just cannot keep all of them together in the same flock, because they will fight each other, they will mass rape the hens, and so you eventually have to sacrifice them or give them away, but then eventually they will be eaten by somebody else. And so within this model of animal farming, death and killing is intrinsically implied. And so there are people who argue that we should abandon this whole model of animal farming because it implies to have to kill, and that we do not really need animal farming, that it's just a way of satisfying some egoic desires that we have for certain foods that we do not truly need. And the argument goes that we can do nutrition and we can do agriculture based on plants only, so that we do not have to kill animals. Is that really true? Do we not need farm animals? Could we just abandon the whole system of farming food using animals? Of course, I agree that the current model of doing animal farming does not really provide major benefits to land regeneration and to physical regeneration. Quite to the contrary, the way we are currently farming animals rather contributes to the degeneration of land and to the degeneration of bodies. The same can be said for how we grow crops, most plant foods these days. So it's not really just a matter of animal farming, it's the way we do farming in general, which can be done both in a degenerative way, which is what most agriculture looks like these days, or in a regenerative way. And to my knowledge of today, we cannot actually do regeneration without animals. I'm not saying particularly without farm animals, but we need animals. In the past, before the domestication of animals, before human beings settled down and started to grow crops and to farm animals, when we were basically still hunters and gatherers, wild herds of animals would do that job of keeping the land regenerated by simply following their natural instincts and way of being. For example, big herds of big grazers would gather together as a protection of predators and move around in packs of animals, trampling the soil heavily for a short amount of time, eating and also leaving their excrements, and then moving on to another piece of land, and always getting away from last day's toilet and of course also from predators. These days we no longer really have that wildlife that could take care of the very large amounts of land on this planet. We're not just talking about our urban gardens, of our urban farms. We're also talking about grasslands, of national parks, of mountains, pasture lands, forests, lands that are partially very inaccessible even for humans. So plants and animals basically evolved together over the millions of years of evolution. And only recently has this situation changed, in the sense that we have, as human beings, domesticated this planet. We have submitted most of the other species, and if we want to turn this around these days, we actually need farm animals, to use them in a good way, to mimic these wild animals that are no longer there. Maybe that would just be a transition. Maybe at some point we could go back to rewilding and to really create again conditions for wild animals to take over that job. But at the current time and in the current situation, we actually do need these animals to take over that job, to regenerate our grasslands, to clear our mountains, our riverbeds, to prevent the further desertification of our lands, as we can see all around the globe happening at a very scary rate. And so, from my current understanding, yes, we do need farm animals to help us regenerate. Obviously, that means a completely different kind of managing these animals than we are currently doing. Alan Savory and holistic management are the ones to mention at this point that really provide an alternative way of doing not just grazing, but management in general, taking into account all the different levels and factors that we would have to consider in a truly holistic framework. Besides the agricultural perspective, where I personally come to the conclusion that we do need farm animals, the same is actually true if we look at the physical perspective, at the nutritional perspective, because as human beings, we are biologically confirmed omnivores. There are in fact a few nutrients that are simply not contained in plant foods, or at least that we as human beings with our limited digestive system cannot access, and where we need actually the animal as an intermediate to pre-digest, to make these nutrients available for us. And the best example probably is vitamin B12, which animals can synthesize from eating plants together with dirt full of bacteria, which then in their long and complex digestive systems, where they spend hours and hours and hours chewing, rechewing, ferments, and in this bacterial interaction, vitamin B12 is produced and synthesized and then stored in the animal's organs, where we then can access it. So simply from that biological perspective, we need animal foods in order to stay healthy and fertile, at least in the long run. Even studies on the benefits of vegan diets confirm that we do need that vitamin B12 and that it should ideally be supplemented in these kind of diets where it is not naturally contained in the food. And I have talked about this in other videos and posts, that for me personally, this completely disqualifies this diet as potentially being the diet meant for us human beings. And so if in a truly natural context where we do not have any supplements, where we do not have health food stores bringing us products from all over the world at any point of the year, if in such a natural context we do depend on animals for our nutritional needs, then common sense tells me that I can conclude that we do need animals also for our personal ideal health and fertility. So if that is true, if we cannot do land regeneration, at least on a global scale, without animals, if we cannot be healthy and fertile in the long run, generation over generation, without animal foods, then, in my opinion, we cannot simply abandon animal farming. We cannot simply choose to no longer do it, to step out of it. We need to find ways how to do it that we can feel at peace with, that we can feel aligned with. And that implies digging deep into very uncomfortable questions, such as the dilemma of having to sacrifice male animals, and how to reconcile our beliefs around life and death with that reality that I would argue is always going to be there, even if I chose to step out of animal farming completely, if I chose to not raise any chickens or goats or cows. This question will always be there, because just because I don't eat animal foods doesn't mean I am not involved in killing and the death of life, of animal life, of soil life, of bacterial life, of human life. Because in the end it always comes down to soil health. Anything that degenerates soil health kills life of all kinds, including ours, in the long run, even though I might not see that directly as an effect of my concrete action. But that doesn't change the fact. And so paradoxically, if animal farming used in the correct way can help to regenerate the soil, then it actually supports life. Whereas anything that degenerates soil, and that can include degenerative crop growing, which I would argue is always going to be the result if we take away the animals, then I am actually killing life. So things are not always as black or white or as straightforward as they seem. And if we are able to look at reality the way it is and not as we would like it to be, then we can go very deep. Because then we need to actually find ways how we can twist our beliefs to make them fit that reality. And that might imply having to change very deep convictions around how things work in the universe and what is good or bad. Maybe step out of this whole good or bad story, out of victim consciousness, out of duality, rather than trying to twist reality so that our beliefs can be accommodated. A reality without the need to kill. That is just not the way nature works. And so, no, we cannot just get rid of farm animals, at least not at this point of human evolution. Maybe in the future, when we have created again the conditions for wildlife to be there, we can reduce the number of farm animals. But at this point in time, I am convinced that we need them. And actually, most of our companion animals actually depend on these farm animals. They eat them each and every day. So do we actually need companion animals? Dogs and cats? Could we just get rid of them too? Probably more so than of farm animals. And I would actually even say that they are in a codependent relationship, that we have an excess of companion animals as we have an excess of farm animals, and they kind of literally feed on each other. And all our dogs and cats actually using all the byproducts of animal farming that are considered garbage or that would not really be used for anything else, and so it serves as pet food for most of our pets. So the two go also hand in hand, actually. We cannot just selectively talk about farm animals, but that also our companion animals are connected to them, as we are all connected in the end. And how can we do things differently, with more consciousness? That is the question. But yes, we do need animals for ideal health and fertility, both of our human body and of our souls. And with that, I leave you for today, and I talk to you soon.